This is a brass 040 that I was given for free, and today I want to fix this thing up and see if I can get it running better than it does currently. This locomotive does actually run, I'll show you that now. However, as you can hear, it's a little bit noisy. And the problem this thing does have, I've run this thing for a little bit longer than this earlier, is that it likes to have a very high current draw, which I believe means that I want to swap this thing out with some neomagnets. Hopefully that'll change it for now. In the future, I'd like to replace the motor, but for the purposes of this video, I want to make it run as good as possible with its original motor. So let me tear into this thing. I think what I was told is that there's only 3 screws that hold the body in. I have been told that these screws are not magnetic, so I think they might be stainless steel or something like that, which will be a pain to put back together, but it's these 3 screws right here that I need to remove. Perfect. I'm going to carefully set that body off to the side, get rid of this, and throw those screws aside, and then we've got the bare bones of this locomotive, which is very, very simple. And I believe right here is the one piece that I need to get access to soon, which is where the magnet resides. I don't know if I will be able to remove this thing, but if I can, I would like to remove it and replace it with a pair of neodymiums. So now that that motor is out of there, I can actually tell a few different things about this locomotive. It looks like, since everything in here seems pretty clean, I shouldn't actually have to take anything out. I can just give these whole bearings some fresh oil and give this gear some fresh oil. This whole chassis piece seems a little bit stiff, so some fresh oil will probably help there. And what it looks like from the motor side of things is that I can, in fact, access the screws I need from the underside here. I'm not sure if that'll mean I can get to the magnet or anything, but I would like to see if that's possible. And just judging by it, it looks like the magnet itself is riveted in place, so I don't think removing this motor was much of a help. However, it did show me that I can get into here pretty easily. So while I've got the motor off, I do want to clean out this piece right here, get out whatever dirt I can. Honestly, this locomotive does not look all that bad. It doesn't seem like it's got any dirty wheel issues. Most of what I've got is noise and a current draw problem. Next up, I'm just going to clean off this worm gear. There's really not much to do in here. And since I'm not going to need the motor out of here for the rest of this video, I'm just going to put this back with the same screws and deploy my plan to fix this thing. And it looks like these screws are also not magnetic, so I'll see if I can grab myself a pair of tweezers, and that should mean I can get this thing back together pretty easily. And this seems like what I'll have to do for the body as well. Alright, now that that motor is reattached, I'm going to test fit this right on here and just see how much space I have to work with. It's not going to be anything crazy, I just want to see if I'm capable of fitting any other magnets in here, because I think that's what part of my problem is. It looks like I might be able to get a few, so I'm going to grab my magnets and see what I can make up here. It is now a few days later, and the old motor has defeated me. I tried to put some new magnets on, that did not help the current draw at all. I tried to take the whole thing apart and completely remove the old magnets and replace it with new ones. That also didn't work. So I was just going to give up, but then I did remember that I bought some motors to attempt to fix up that Aristocraft 422 that I still have laying around. And I found this one, which is almost exactly the right size. It does make the frame sit just a tiny bit high, but it is not that bad, and I can live with the gap. Which, as you can see, it's just a really small gap on the bottom right there, if it'll want to focus. It's barely noticeable from a distance, and it's just slightly worse than it was stock, so I am fine with that. I did all the work and wiring off camera just because it's annoying, and I was going to film it. However, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because all this wiring work was annoying. I had to take apart this contact and rebuild it several different times. But overall, the new soldering iron worked pretty well, and it did the job for this thing. So all that's really left to do is I just need to put this shell back on, and I need to give this thing a little bit of fresh grease and oil. I have actually tested this thing out with the new motor very briefly, without any fresh grease or oil, and I will say, it is quite a bit louder in reverse. I don't know if it'll just need to work in, but I think hopefully some fresh oil and grease will help this. So I will cut the clip here, I'll put this shell back on, I'll give this thing a little bit of oil and grease, and then we can go test this thing out, and hopefully there's no more high current draw, and this thing will run relatively smooth. After all that, I've got the 040 set up on the track. Let me give this thing a bit of power. And it's a little bit loud. It's not terribly loud, a little bit louder going forwards. But it does seem to run pretty smoothly. It might just need to break in a little bit since I messed with the positioning of the gearing and all that. But I really don't think this is too bad. Even though it's got a pretty slow top speed, that's fine for an engine this small. It'll just need to run in a little bit, and I think this thing will serve its purpose perfectly.